All right, we continue to take more action. We're now joined by Gillian Saunders. She's a tourism expert to comment on President Cyril Ramaphosa's address. Gillian, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us and a warm welcome to the Globe.
Good evening, Simpiwe. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, South Africa has said that the travel ban is unjustified, and Britain and other European countries, with the United States being the latest, did not engage with the country before introducing the flight ban. Is South Africa's outrage justified?
I would say it's absolutely justified and more than justified. I think the UK led the field on Thursday evening in an incredibly abrupt way, imposing what I would consider to be a draconian ban, banning all flights straight away, and then saying we're going back to the red level, and that then people will have to go into compulsory hotel quarantine when flights resume, as in, I think on Tuesday they're planning to resume flights, but they'll be the same as before when we're on the red list. Expensive compulsory hotel quarantine when you arrive in the UK. And the fact is that it's not scientific. There's no scientific basis for it. The World Health Organization has come out clearly and said that these things don't work. They might slightly delay the spread of the virus, but we already know that the virus, the Omicron virus or variant, has been found in the UK and numerous other countries. So it's already out there, it's already spreading. And even if you have travel bans, it finds its way into the country via indirect flights, via people coming via so-and-so who know so-and-so. So everybody says these bans don't work. So it was extremely unfair and an unjust thing that these were imposed on us. And if I may go on, the impact on our tourism industry is utterly horrendous. We have calculated that the inbound overseas tourism industry, most of those countries are overseas, is worth about 225 million rand a day, usually in 2019 terms, spent in South Africa. 225 million rand a day is being lost to the economy fundamentally through these bans. And that means a huge amount of jobs and a huge amount of businesses that were barely surviving because they've had 20 months of sort of terrible struggle to stay afloat. And now when it looked like they had a reasonable December and a reasonable few months of our high season coming through, not quite at the same levels as 2019, but a reasonable level, all of a sudden, in sort of like 12 hours, it was pulled out from under their feet. It's been horrific.
These travel bans may be unjust and unfair, but do you not think that, the reasoning and the rationale of these American and European countries which impose travel bans on South Africa in particular are purely precautionary and not necessarily scientific or political?
They're very definitely using precautionary as the reason for putting them in, and they're not scientific, but I do believe they may be political. And I'm not sure that they even recognize their own political biases when they put these bans in. I think people have made some interesting comments, and it's hard to put it in the exact comparative context, but if it had been the USA on less than 3,000 new cases a day and 22 cases of a new variant sequence, which was what the knowledge was on Thursday evening, would the UK have banned flights to the US? Had it been another country, Singapore or Germany, would they have banned flights? But because it was South Africa, I believe that they perceived it was an inconsequential thing from their perspective to ban us, and so they did. And if you look at the UK, and it's introduced slightly strict restrictions. Yesterday evening, the president spoke there, or the prime minister spoke there, and he introduced more restrictions. I believe that they were facing a challenge in terms of the level of new transmissions in the UK and the fact that they had removed all restrictions. And rather than making or reversing their decision, they used our variant to make an excuse to reverse their decision.
Has any economic considerations been made with regards to these travel bans? I mean, seeing the timing that we're now getting closer into the festive season where economic activity is at its peak.
So I don't think the countries that have banned us have paid any consequence whatsoever to the impact it has on jobs and livelihoods in South Africa and our economy. And I go back to the 225 million rand a day of spend. We've done a survey in the tourism industry of the sort of 12 hours from Saturday till Sunday morning, as in this morning. And we had about 600 and some respondents, but amongst about 400 of those respondents, they'd already seen R1 billion in cancellations. And their estimate, if these bans stayed in place for the bulk of the season through to, say, March next year, was that they would see 78% less business than they had anticipated achieving. And that means over those 3 to 4 months, about a 26 billion rand hit on the hospitality and tourism industry in South Africa. That's a huge amount for so many businesses, so many jobs, so many people who won't have a livelihood, or so many businesses will now be close to folding again, if not have to fold again. And it's really tough for those people. They have swung in a 12-hour period from a little bit of light on the horizon, that they were going to make some profits or at least mitigate some of the losses they made in the last 20 years. They were re-employing people. Some of the businesses have taken on 50 people more, 30 people more. All of a sudden, those people who've got their jobs back are now faced with the prospect of most likely losing their jobs again, at least for the next few months. So that's economic consequences, and those very personal consequences, I don't think were any consideration when these decisions were taken in other countries.
You know, Gillian, there's been much contestation with regards to whether travel bans to affected areas or denial of entry to passengers coming from the affected areas is actually effective in preventing the importation of cases to those countries. So from a tourism perspective, is it really effective? I mean, imposing a travel ban, is it effective in curbing the importation of cases?
So remember, I'm a tourism expert and I'm not an epidemiologist or an infectious disease expert, but we've been liaising with a number of scientists, and I think you'll see quite a number of them from Shabir Mahdi, who spoke earlier on your program, quite a number of the others that we're talking to, Mark Mendelsohn, Francois Fenter, all saying travel bans do not work. And in fact, globally, a number of different scientists have said the same thing. If they do anything, they might give you a 1 or 2 or maybe a week's reprieve. But we can see that it's already, this variant is already in multiple different countries. There's cases in the UK already. And if we trace those back, they've probably been going, so at the moment, we are credited with excellent genomic surveillance. But some of those countries have not been able to do the genomic surveillance at the level that we've been able to, or they have so many cases already that those cases that might be the new variant are lost within the 40 or 50,000 new cases a day there are in the UK. And it's highly likely that there are far more of the cases of this variant out there already. So it's a matter of after the horse has bolted. There are other tools which you can use to start sort of constraining the spread of the virus, which is more PCR testing on arrival and more genomic sequencing and more contact tracing, which is the best tools available to actually try and curb the spread of or the transmission of the virus. So it's a very draconian knee-jerk reaction, because at the moment we don't know very much about this virus or this variant. Again, most of the scientists are saying that the vaccines are highly likely to be effective against the variant, particularly for severe disease and death. They might be slightly less effective for infection. And these are the things we'll find out. But it's very, very early days. And if we look back over the last few months, there's been a number of variants that have come out and people have said, oh, this could be the scary one that's going to outcompete Delta or going to cause a new severe wave. And none of them have actually gone anywhere. And we don't know about this one yet, whether it's actually going to go anywhere and really create a big problem for the world. But it's important, and that's why our scientists were correct in flagging this variant. And I think they were brilliant in detecting it and following it and being able to say to the world, hang on, there is a variant here that we need to all take great notice of and consider what's happening with it. But then we have been punished unfairly for that. And had it been many other countries, I have a feeling that it wouldn't have happened.
You know, Gillian, the discovery of this new variant has caught everybody by total surprise. I mean, that includes the tourists themselves, the travel agents, the tourism authorities, in particular, the government departments who are dealing with tourism. But in terms of cushioning all these affected parties, is there a way, or is there a mechanism in place of cushioning them against the effects and the devastating effects of this variant, and by extension the COVID-19 pandemic, seeing that we are well into the festive season?
Well, unfortunately not. I mean, we know that all of our schemes for supporting people on the payroll through TIRS and things like that have gone at the moment. So there is nothing there to assist. There's no international funding to assist. It's simply been that a huge amount of revenue has been pulled from our industry overnight, and there's nothing to cushion that at all. The best thing we have left for us at the moment is the domestic tourism industry over the high season. And we are incredibly grateful, although I think the President gave a very balanced speech tonight, and I think it was correct that he did not change our restriction levels at all. And we are, through our Tourism Minister, Lindiwe Sisulu, and through NEDLAC, we're putting on the table that as a tourism industry, first of all, we believe that the President was right not to change the restriction levels. that at the moment hospitals are not under pressure at all, and while cases are rising, they're not at a particularly high level. So we need to be vigilant, and absolutely we need to vaccinate. And should we need more restrictions as we do enter the fourth wave, and hopefully the fourth wave, for various reasons, may not be as severe as the prior waves, if we need more restrictions as a tourism industry, we would hope that they do not, and we think it would be fair that they don't do things such as close the beaches, prohibit interprovincial travel, prohibit alcohol sales, bring the curfew incredibly early. Because if they do any of those, what is left for our industry over this high season period is a strong domestic tourism business. And if that goes, then I really do believe it's going to be the end of the road for many businesses and many jobs in the tourism industry.
Right.
It's been really tough to lose the international business, but to lose the domestic business as well would really be the death knell for much of the industry.
All right, Gillian, lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate your time.